Hi guys, this is the video that I was supposed to do a couple of weeks ago when I ended up making the hacksaw blade knife. I was trying to make the crook knife. So I'm going to give it a go again today. This time I'm going to use this coil spring. This is from my old motocrosser. I've got rid of the bike so I'll never be using this again. We're going to uncoil it, just unwind a bit, probably quite a lot, so that it's easy to hold, and we're going to give it a go. I've never used coil spring before, but it's good stuff, and I've seen several people use it on various tools, so I think with any luck we'll have a bit of success. Now, I'm not a woodworker, so I don't know what a crook knife actually should look like, or even the dimensions or anything else, but as usual I'm going to wing it and see how we get on. Just going to see if I can find some tools that might be useful for uncoiling this. Perhaps my F-tool, maybe those, a pair of old things, they're not even tongs really. Let's give it a go, see if we can pull some of this apart. Once I get it started, it should be relatively easy. Stick it in the hardy hole and give it a twist. Well, sort of started. Straighten that bit out. See if that'll go down the hole a bit better. Let's get it warm again. Make life easier if it's warm. Alright, let's see if I can find some gloves. Here we go, because I think it's going to get a bit warm. Trying to sort this out. Not that I usually need them, but I'll have a go. Right, let's see if we can... That's a bit better. Try and straighten it as we go, get it sort of straight. This stuff's about, because it's off a bike, I think it's about 10mm, maybe a little bit over. It's certainly not 1/2 inch, I don't think. And it's sort of a nice size for fit making tools. Let's see if I can get my hardy cutter out. I'm going to need it shortly. Yeah, so it's quite a nice size material for making tools. It's not too big, like a car spring. I think you'd have to draw down quite a lot to get a nice small tool. Obviously, if you're making a big tool, then the car spring's better. But for a knife, I think this is going to be pretty ideal. Right, a little bit more, I think. Actually, it might be 1/2 inch. I'm not sure. It's those things. These there are 5/8. It's only might be. I think it's between 10mm and 1/2 inch, or 3/8 and 1/2 inch. See if we can do it slightly different way. Get the F-tool out again. Yeah, that's quite a good way. Get a bit of leverage on it now. And as you straighten it, the other bit drops down the hole. Perfect. Yeah, definitely the way to go. And I think we still want a little bit more. Just a little bit. The reason I want quite a bit is so I can hold it without tongs. If I don't have to use tongs, I'd rather not, because there's plenty of spring. I might as well. Doesn't take long to get warm again. I think I'll need that now. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Once it's started to uncoil, stick it down there. Lovely job. I think that's probably enough. Might just get it warm again and cut it off. So we'll have the hardy cutter, which is not really designed for this anvil. A little bit on the loose side, but still does the job. Alright, whip this off. There we go. The spring I'm just going to let cool down, I'm just going to chuck it on the floor and let that cool down and then use that another day. Find a pair of tongs. Right, so if we can just straighten this up a little bit, that's just about the right sort of length now. I'm just going to try and take a few of the kinks out of it with what heat remains. That's a bit better. That'll probably do for now. I'm just going to cool out the bit I want to hold. No point cooling it all out because I'm just going to heat the other end up again, so just the bit you want to hold on to. Perfect. Don't need the gloves anymore. Alright, so that's your bit of steel to start with. Let's whack it in the fire, get it warm, and give it a go. See what we can do. Winging it as usual. Right, just got about, I don't know, 3 inches hot. And I'm just going to draw it out, sort of a bit of a, how do I describe it? Thinning it down to one edge more than the other, like a blade. I'm going to do a bit of it over there, but I can't see that, so I'll carry on with it here. I think I've already made the blade a bit long. Yeah, I think that's possibly a bit long. I want to get rid of some of this meat and thin it out further back, which is what I want to do over the beak, which is why I swing that round so you can see. I don't want any steps in it, so this is why I'm doing it over there, so you get a nice rounded transition between the handle and the blade. You could put a step in it, but it's always a weak point, so it's just as easy as you've got an anvil to make it rounded. Again, as I say, I think that's a little bit long, but that's the general idea I think that I want to achieve. Once it's drawn out, I can sort of play about with the shape on the grinder, but I want to get enough drawn out to have that opportunity to play about with it on the grinder. If you don't draw enough out to start with, then you end up doing it all on the grinder. So, when it's quite thin, that's what I was saying about if you were using a car spring, that would take quite a lot to draw that down. with this being quite small in the first place, it's not quite so bad. I'm just going to put a little bit of a step in it. Again, this is over the rounded bit of the anvil. That first 4 or 5 inches is rounded, so we don't get a sharp step in it. I'm going to change to the shoeing hammer, which has got a nice rounded end on it, and I'm just going to draw this back edge out so that the knife's, or the blade, it's not a knife, well it is a knife I suppose, so that the blade is more uniform thickness. Square that off. Obviously that bit will be drawn out into a tang of some sort to go onto a handle. Well, that's sort of about what I wanted. It's still a bit long, but it's about what I'm looking for. So now we're going to grind it, try and get more of a shape that I imagine will do the job. I think really I've got the front edge a bit wide. So I don't really know what I'm up to, but I'll play about with it, grind a bit off until the shape appeals to my eye. As you can see, it's still quite thick at the top there. It's about probably 3/16 at the top and just under 1/8 at the bottom. So I want to still take out quite a bit of meat off this blade. I don't want it big, thick and chunky. I want it quite fine from probably 2/3 of the way down. Still want to keep a reasonable thickness of spine on it, but not too much. Just going to take a little bit more off on this grinder, and then what I'll do is take it up onto the bench, stick it in the vise and go at it with a flat disc. It's a bit more controllable than this. This is fine for taking off the worst of it, but to get the fine detail done, it's much better with the flat disc, much more controllable. I'll go over and give that a go. Right, I made a bit of a balls up here. I've already done a bit, but that's because I'd switched the camera on when I'd actually switched it off. So all I got was nothing. So I've taken it down, when I get my hands out of the way, you'll see. I've actually made it a little bit thinner in almost all directions. Tapered it a bit more, you can see there. A bit more like a knife blade. I just want to get a bit more meat out the back of it. I want the back flat, which is that side. I want that fairly flat right the way from top to bottom. And I want the taper on the inside. Now, I have done a little bit of research on these Crook knives, and depending on where you look, some have the taper on the inside, which is what I'm going to do, and some have the taper on the outside. I can't for the life of me think of any good reason for either way, to be honest. So I'm just going to try it this way first. If it doesn't work, I'll swap it round the other way. Beauty of making your own tools, you can do what you like. I think I'm going to sort of leave it like that for now. It's not perfect, but bearing in mind I've got to heat treat it and sharpen it and do all sorts of other things with it yet. That's got the best, or the basics done. I'm now going to shape it. First First of all, I'm going to use the rounded edge of my hammer, just put a set in it, set it down, again over the rounded edge of the anvil at the top there, and then back the other way, putting the shape that I want, the final shape. Now I've taken quite a lot of meat out of this, and so it's fairly easy to bend. You see that it's coming around slowly. Again, like I said at the beginning, I'm not a woodworker, so I don't really know what it should be like, but I'm just guessing. It's quite, well, it's very soft at the moment. That's why I'm hardly hitting it at all, because I don't want any flats in it. One thing I do want is for it to be very, very smooth, gentle radius. So I'm really taking my time, going gently to make sure there's no flats in it, even around the blade edge. Just really touching it up so it's nice and smooth. And that is sort of what I was aiming for. I'm going to cut it off back here and draw that out into a bit of a taper to fit into a handle. I haven't got a handle in mind at the moment, but if I do decide to use it, I will obviously need a handle of some sort on it. So it's easier to do the taper now before I've heat treated it. Otherwise you'll just spoil it if you try and do it afterwards. It's fairly nice stuff to work, this spring steel. I've never used spring steel before. It actually forges quite nicely. But like all of these tool steels, you don't want to overwork them. Don't give too many heats. Obviously I don't like working stuff cold, and this stuff I would imagine doesn't like being worked cold. I guess it could split, but it's again one of those things, it's a compromise. Don't hit it too cold, but don't get it hot too many times. So you want to do as much as you can whilst you've got your heat there. So I don't know what handle I'm going to put on, so I'm not too fussed on what sort of taper I put on it. You know, I might get screws on, I might get a push on, might even glue one on, who knows. But whichever I decide, this sort of taper would work. You could of course even flatten it out the opposite way to the blade, very thin. I think I'm going to leave it at that. But you could do it the opposite way to the blade, very thin, and put scales on it. Rivet through it. It's up to you, entirely up to you. Right, before I heat treat it, I'm going to put, with this chainsaw file, just going to put a bit more of an edge on it. Obviously once it's heat treated, it's going to be that much harder to do. So whilst it's soft, I'm going to get sort of an edge on it. Just makes your life easier once it's heat treated. These chainsaw files are brilliant. I use them for all sorts of things, and they're so cheap. Down at our local agricultural suppliers, you can probably buy a box of them for about a £5. They're real cheap, and all sorts of different sizes. They're great for all sorts of little jobs. Across the back here, this is the back. I want to keep it nice and straight. That's not bad. It's got a bit of an edge on there now. So it's not perfect, but it's going to be polished up. And that put an edge on it, so I'm just going to stick it in the fire and heat treat it. See how we get on. Right, as the blade is pretty thin, I'm going to leave it up at the back so that it doesn't get too hot too quick. I don't want the tang particularly to be fully hardened, so I'm just going to try and I do want some heat in the tang, obviously, but it doesn't have to be that hot. I want to get the blade up to non-magnetic before I quench it. I haven't got the fire up particularly high because I want it to sort of soak right through the heat. I don't want to just get the outside hot. I want to really sort of bathe in the heat. Looks about right. Yep, non-magnetic. Just about. Yep, perfect. Quench that out. And that should be as hard now. See if I can find my little file, whatever I've done with it. Put it down somewhere. That's the beauty of a dirty shop. I can't find anything. Oh, there we go. And that now, yeah, that's as hard as, you won't get an edge on that, not with a file anyway. So now, what we'll do, we'll let it down. I'm going to aim for, I don't know, blue straw, that type of area. And I'm just hanging this in the flames. I'm not putting it in the fire at all because that will get hot really quick. You can just see the blue colour coming through there, but it hasn't gone all the way back, so just want to try and get the back of the blade a bit more. You can't really see it because the blooming camera won't focus, but trust me, that's just about right. And I want to get that in quick before that goes too far. And there we are. Try the file on it again. Much better. Not as hard as it was, but not as soft as it was when I put the first edge on it. So I'm going to polish it up now. Get a mirror finish on it as much as I can. And that at the same time has really honed that cutting edge with some cutting paste on the polishing wheel. And you may notice I've inadvertently made a left-handed tool, which is hopeless for me to use because I'm right-handed. I didn't even think about it when I was making it, so that's something to bear in mind. It's not ideally sharp, wants a little bit more sharpening, and I think also it wants tightening up. The blade, I think I said this at the beginning, the blade is too big. It really wants making a bit smaller, a bit tighter. This would probably be perfect for bowls, but for spoons it's a little bit big. So there's a lesson, excuse me, there's a lesson learned. If you want to make spoons, you want to make it smaller. But you can see that it would work if I could use it left-handed. Trying to use it right-handed is really awkward. I'm quite good at most things with my left hand, but this isn't one of them. But you get the idea. So what I think I'm going to do is perhaps turn it inside out and tighten it up so that the taper will then be on the outside. So it'll give me an idea as to what happens that way around. Because this is no good as it is to me, left-handed, so I'm going to heat it up, turn it inside out, repolish it and see what that does. Right, I haven't bothered to show you all that because it's exactly the same as I did before, but you can see I've tightened it up a bit, turned it inside out. It's now a right-handed tool, but unfortunately I think I've overworked it because there's cracks appeared in here several cracks, not just the one, so that'll be going in the scrap bin when I'm finished with it. But we'll see what it works at like now. Of course now I'm using it with my left hand again, but that's better. It's a little bit sharper than it was before. Still could do with being a little bit tighter, I reckon, and actually more upright, so that, yeah, that would be the way if you used it like that. So if we tightened up the very end and used it more upright. So I think I might make myself another one just to see it work properly. Yeah, that's much better. See, use the end there that's curved more, and it's a lot sharper, that end. That would work quite nicely for spoons. Yeah. Well, there you go. A crook knife. Hope you've enjoyed that. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.